Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Dying Time is here. That's right. We're talking about Mortuary, believe it or not, on our 300th episode of Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Cliffside, California, he said with shrugged shoulders. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And we're going to talk about all the goriest details of 1983 or 82 or 81's Mortuary, in the hopes that a junior college attendee's death is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to make sure that before my funeral and my coffin lid is closed, before I'm buried and my flesh turns cold, before I'm covered with the last shovelful of dirt, she'll make sure I'm really dead. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Not only that, I will make sure that we select a casket that you feel comfortable in.
It's so hard when you look at caskets and you say, I can see myself in there, but your partner knows you sometimes better than you know yourself. And she's like, I don't see you laying under 6 feet of ground in this. I don't think your corpse, where your soul will no longer be, will be happy in that box.
But when your body is reduced to juices, don't we just want a different color of the silk lining?
I mean, if you're going to get worms all inside your body and you're just full of corpse juice now, you want to have at least be happy that you made the right decision when it counted.
It's so important. It's so important.
Well, I don't want to scare you, Gina, but we are not alone. That's right. We have a special guest. And of course, you know him as one of the gang from one of our favorite shows, We Hate Movies. And of course, he's a returning champion here to Kill by Kill. The one, the only Steven Sajdak. How are you doing today, Steven?
I wish I knew it was your 300th episode. I would have brought you guys champagne or something. I have all the champagne in my house. I keep trying to get rid of it. I can't. No, this is amazing. Congratulations on 300 episodes. That's so exciting.
Thank you. It was a surprise to me. I was actually just checking episode counts. And
I think this is the first I heard of it.
Okay.
It came as a bit of a surprise. I was asked to look at my episode count, and I did, and I'm like, all right. Okay. So yeah, it's listen, we don't plan well around here, but the good news is this is a fun movie to talk about. Gina is here. She's happy. She's healthy. And our old pal Steve is in the house. Love to have you back here on the program. We only invite you for the most disco-inflected episodes of Kill by Kill.
I gotta say, speaking of surprises, I didn't know that I had seen this movie before until about halfway in, and when it started, I'm like, maybe, kind of, sort of. But what settled it for me was this sunken-in living room that we spend about 2/3 of the movie in, and It's gorgeous. We don't make them like this anymore. Fuck your open plan. No, I want to take 3 steps down into a living room. There's got to be a stairway with a banister to beat all banisters as well. This and carpeting as far as the eye can see. Fuck your open plan is what I say.
It is strange to have a movie that is so carpeted, because at
every surface,
anything they can carpet, they absolutely do, wall to wall. At one point, Greg, our bohunk of a lead here, makes a phone call from a very low payphone on a wall that is completely carpeted.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like the roller rink is somehow carpeted as well.
Yes.
Well, any surface that can be carpeted in the roller rink is a good idea.
Even the bubble lettering appears to have some carpeting attached to it. The only thing that is not carpeted is the gentleman in the white silver band uniform who dances in the middle of the floor for everyone's entertainment. He's the only one carpet free.
I love the roller rink. I don't want to get outside of the realm of the film, but the roller rink has all these characters at it that are like so excited that they're not in the wrong in 99% of slasher movies, because in 99% of slasher movies, all four of those dudes, the fat guy is totally getting his, the blonde girl, the two other, everyone is getting their own death, which by the way would be a much better movie and much more exciting.
Right.
But they're just like kind of hanging out being like, so what's that movie like? That's crazy. Oh, that's nuts. You want more Diet Coke? I would love it. Talk to you soon.
Can you get me a refill of popcorn?
Exactly.
What do you mean you're not skating? There's that one guy with a very weird half Prince Valiant haircut who looks directly into the camera during a scene.
Yeah, sure.
And he's just supposed to be a background player, but all of a sudden it's like, why is there a Stephen King greaser bully in the background staring down the camera? This movie is delightfully incompetent. It feels haphazard. When Gina watched it, she was texting me and she's like, I don't understand why one scene leads into the other. And I suggested it was quite possible that they put script pages on a giant wheel and just spun it while editing. And whatever landed next is the next scene, because I don't know, Greg's still wearing the same polo in half the movie. Why change it?
Well, I mean, when you've got a really magnetic presence like Greg, you just want to frame him in the middle of the scene and just let him go.
I mean, he is the most shagadelic Frankenstein we've ever accomplished, come across. Look, let's get back into just a little bit of background, because this movie confuses the fuck out of me. It comes out in 1983. It's directed by Howard Amadeus. And if you've never heard that name before, you're right. You shouldn't have. His wife, Marilyn Schmidt, who's his constant producer, is also attached to this movie. She co-writes the movie. And they begin lensing this thing supposedly in 1981, when every studio head in town is demanding, I want the next Friday the 13th on my desk by Monday, or you'll be back to washing cars in San Pedro, Lamar. And I don't know if Lamar actually ended up going back to washing cars, but chances are probably. The thing is, most of the references and the feel of this movie reek of pre-1980s America. I would say Bill Paxton owns the only pair of eyes in this film that have witnessed Ronald Reagan become president. Everyone else is stuck in line for leaded gas during the embargo. It's just all boogie vans and Farrah hair and dancing to disco in your sunken living room in front of a blazing fire.
Just the sunken living room. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep going back to it. It's just, we used to be a country. You know what I mean? We used to have values.
Listen, we used to walk down into our living room.
Exactly.
This is where we got down, where we didn't talk to one another on a lower level, and that's where we need to get back to. But the director here was a graduate of the vaunted USC Film School. He won the George Cukor Award in college for a film he directed there, and he used that pedigree to make some of the sleaziest and shittiest films of the 1970s and 80s, including such obvious titles as The Stepmother, The Teacher, Dr. Minx, who I assume attended 6 years of MILF school to get that title. But most importantly, he made a remake of The Teacher in 1984 called They're Playing with Fire, in which Sybil Danning plays a teacher so hot she entices a teenager to, let me check my notes here, play with fire, which you should not do. It's a bad idea, but she's so hot. What else are you going to do? In 1982, the finished version of Mortuary is released in 2 cities as Embalmed. And Paramount Pictures put it there to kind of test it out. It's fucking sucked. They yank it. Like, this is not fit for human consumption. A year later, some independent, racket, trying to wash clean mob money goes, we're going to release it as Mortuary. And reporting varies on the budget, but it's definitely under $1 million. It ends up making $4 million. So some guys in Kansas City are thrilled about how this turned out. But what I want to talk about before we get into the movie is, of course, the trailer for Mortuary,
Jesus.
which only lasts 1 minute. So this won't take very long, but it does contain not one single image from the finished motion picture. This is just a special shoot in which they take the print copy from the poster, have some VO guy say it out loud on a microphone, and they imported Michael Berryman from The Hills Have Eyes.
Yes.
In Weird Science to play Michael Berryman in a graveyard, and then he gets pulled into a grave by one of those end of carry hands. Why? I don't know. Probably because every image in this movie reads like it was filmed under the influence of Billy Beer, and they just wanted it to seem fresher
Do you
than
think when
that.
people went to went to go see this, they were like, they came out of the theater, excuse me, I expected Michael Berryman. I did not get Michael Berryman. Please give me back my $2.
Well, I mean, wasn't there that lawsuit about, I forget which actress it was cut out of a movie or something, and like
The Beatles movie where one guy remembers the Beatles and nobody else does.
Yesterday, yes.
Yeah.
And I forget the actress that was in the trailer, but she got cut out of the trailer or cut out of the movie, and they tried to sue for false advertising, and like they were just like, go fuck yourself. I mean, like it went to court, but the answer was go fuck yourself. But
yes.
Man, oh man, this is a case of false advertising. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What you're setting up is a movie about the dead rising from the grave. You're also setting up a movie with atmosphere that isn't exactly like just some coastal California town, just a low and lazy coastal California town, which is also what this movie is.
Yeah, hardly any scenes in this movie are entirely blue like the trailer is. It promises a whole bunch of shit that it does not deliver on. Now, I think is somewhere in the 2000s, Tobe Hooper made a movie called Mortuary, and that teaser trailer, those make sense, with the exception that I don't think Michael Berryman's in the movie. Everything else is just a lot of hands reaching out of graves. That's full of that. But this, none of it. It just, in fact, you can watch the first half an hour, you still won't know what this movie's about.
Nope.
So
it only really gets going when like they drop. I get it wouldn't even be a mystery because like literally like so there's a kill in the beginning and then like Bill Paxton goes nuts. Towards the end of the movie, the middle of it, nothing's happening. We're just running around.
It's a mystery that is solved the first time you see the killer, because you can obviously see that it's Bill Paxton in Grim Reaper makeup.
Yeah, it's Grim Reaper makeup, but it also is very reminiscent of the Pazuzu makeup for The Exorcist, that flash that you get. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little Captain Howdy going on. The black cloak helps. Sure. But it's so, I mean, we'll try to put it together.
It's definitely one of those movies where it's like, okay, we only have like 45 minutes of movie here. What should we, how about we squeeze in like an entirely nude sex scene, right? Just right in the middle of everything.
Just stop the movie dead for breasts. And, I'm not one to complain, so I'm here for it. But also, I didn't require it, so it doesn't make the movie better, but it also doesn't make the movie worse. It's kind of, we're floating at 50-50 in this movie.
Gina, at least something's happening that doesn't have to do with maybe why is the power going on and off.
There are more problems with power in Cliffside, California than Texas has ever had. Let's put it that way. There's just a serious difficulty happening on the grid in Cliffside, California.
I was, Chekhov's phone company. If you mention the phone company that much, you have to show them the third act. And they don't. They just don't. They talk so much about calling the phone company, wanting to call the phone company, having dealings with the phone company. I want to see the fucking phone company at that point.
I need to see a guy whose tool belt is pulling down his pants just too much. So I get a little bit of crack in the back. But no, that guy's nowhere to be seen. It's a lot of promise and very little fulfillment of that promise. So let's get into the movie. We open on a very large house. And this is the Gulls Way Estate, which is on the north end of Malibu, California. And you can have your wedding there if you happen to have a lot of money. So if you're one of those lucky few, you can get married there. I don't know what else you can do, but you better have a lot of money.
And then you get to tell people you got married where Mortuary was shot.
I mean, I'm sure, I don't know why that's not number one on their website. You too can get married where Mortuary was filmed, both inside and out.
I will say I would only do it if they did not renovate the inside of the house. If that's the case, then yes, then I will pay top dollar. I'll go into debt.
I can't guarantee that. They definitely got rid of that driveway. That brick driveway is gone, which is very unfortunate.
Gorgeous.
I just love it. We don't make them that way anymore because we ran out of bricks to do it. But we have the opening credits over the swimming pool, and very few films have the guts to establish the existence of a swimming pool this hard. Like once you get through the credits, you're like, okay, I believe a pool can exist. They've given you that. This place has a pool, motherfucker.
It's fantastic. It's also like you're seeing, you're getting this like, it's called Mortuary. Again, Michael Berryman be damned, but like this is the brightest opening to a movie that I've ever seen.
It is very sun-drenched horror. There are very few sun-drenched slashers, but at least our opening kill is all just a very gauzy, package on the lighting. And we meet Dr. Parson. He's hot. He's wealthy. He's about to get hit in the head with a
very
bat.
lightly. It looks like
First he gets,
Thank you, Gina. That's a take 2 on the hit on the bat because we didn't get it the first time. It's just so like it just kisses the side of his head.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's almost knighted. Like out of this, he's Sir Dr. Parson until his untimely end, drowning. I mean, he gets hit in the back, then that tap on the forehead, and he dances out of this. Like I've seen solid gold dancers be less graceful hitting a pool than this guy does. And this is where we first meet Christine, who has come home in slow motion. You almost wonder if she's ever filmed at speed after this, because Christy just screams in slow motion, "Daddy," and then that's it. Then we just cut to other parts of the film.
This is I don't know what crow's nest or whatever. I don't know the architectural term, but it's what you would need if you were Odysseus's wife and you were looking out to see if he was coming home.
Yeah, she is like 300 yards away from, and this is her house, and she still like looks like it would take her about 20 minutes to get out to where he is.
Yeah, it's a ways from where she needs to go. It should be noted that Christy is played by Mary McDonough, who combines all the raw sexuality that she brought to her long run on TV's The Waltons with a consistent air of unbothered by weird suitors or the death of her father. She exists. We don't see through her, so she's not a ghost. She really is in this movie, despite her best efforts to walk away from it, like that Simpsons gift of Homer.
I was going to say she's constantly backing into the bushes.
Yes.
And it's also, I mean, like, this is a gorgeous transfer that I rented off Amazon. Mm-hmm. You really could tell that that's not her in those sex scenes. Boy, oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
They just, I mean, especially, not even the sex scenes, but the scene when at the end when she's on the slab and naked, it's just a totally different woman. And like you need to have a way to obscure the hair or not shoot the face quite as much. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's really something.
I mean, this is a movie that I think really benefits from a VHS tape and a full-screen television.
The version I watched was on YouTube, and it was just so perfectly grainy and dim, and it just looks like something you would have rented from the sketchiest video store imaginable.
Ooh, now I'm getting jealous.
And so after this murder, you're like, okay, we start out with a bang. Well, why don't we follow that up with a little journey into the warehouse district in a boogie van. That's right, baby. Boogie vans are back on Kill by Kill. Let's meet Greg. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He's blonde. He's resplendent in a baby blue windbreaker. He's got feathered hair. He's got 7 brain cells fighting for dominance inside his skull. Greg has it all.
He's also, he's a good buddy, because you know what? When your friend is like, hey, man, do you want to do a crime so I could steal 2 tires from something? You're like, yeah, absolutely. I am totally down to commit a crime with you on a Saturday, and so that you can walk away with with half a car's worth of tires.
Yeah. Listen, he could get 4 tires, but what he needs is 2, and he doesn't take more than he needs. That's the kind of person Josh is. Josh sounds like the least important member of the Bowery Boys. He's from the Brooklyn section of Cliffside, California, based on that accent.
And he also went to the Arrested Development School of Chicken Noises, because
I'm convinced this is the source code for that. I am convinced.
Yeah, that's no chicken I've ever heard.
Because, Gary doesn't want to get out, and he's like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What are we doing?
I mean, you almost need an aptitude test after that. Just pull out a piece of paper and a pencil and go, Josh, I need you to write down what you think a chicken looks like.
It's like he, his idea of how a chicken noise is from Disney's Robin Hood or something.
That's the only chicken he's ever seen.
The only chicken I've ever encountered has been animated and in love with various bears. When Greg is kind of iffy about this, and when he gets said, like, listen, I don't want to do this. He and Josh have this very half-hearted slap fight that, I don't know, it's ill-advised. What we all want them to do is kiss. But no, it's a slap fight. Just kiss, you two. You know you want to.
You do. You want to watch it happen. And there's also this, I love it in bad movies when it's very clear, the script is really bare. It's like, Greg and Josh go into the warehouse and things, and on the way, they encounter a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, there needs to be more active than that. And it's like, I don't know, dude, what if you guys grab ass for a little while and bad actors have to improvise. And it's also you're in junior college. You're like 19, 20, 21 even. You're not fucking around like this in this warehouse. I don't know what you guys are doing. Unless you waked and baked, which you probably did in your power van. But I need to see that.
Yes. I'm sure one of them has a dictionary that is full of joints and a cutout. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I'd like to believe it more. Another example of that improv is at one point, Josh sees something through a window and he calls Greg over. And Greg almost brains himself and just haphazardly goes, low beam. There's
excellent.
No take 2 on that bad boy. This is just verisimilitude.
Yeah, there's a big, we have a very finite amount of film to work with vibe to this whole proceeding.
Listen, we only have this warehouse for an afternoon. We got to get through this, guys. So it doesn't matter how many loose tires or vintage wheelchairs they encounter. We just gotta keep moving. So they fart around for various clues of how to get the tires out of the warehouse. And it turns out that the place is just full of valuables. And then they look at one window and there's a fucking satanic ritual taking place.
In the afternoon, on a Saturday afternoon.
Broad daylight when the best satanic rituals take place.
I'm gonna keep it satanic, but I'm gonna keep it cash. You know what I mean? In leading this rite is Mr. Andrews, played by Christopher George in his most cut the crap mode that
he's so grousing.
I love this guy so much. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time, Enter the Ninja, as the the evil white businessman. He's just got that face. You could just, it's a great face. It's a really good face.
It looks like it's chiseled out of something that would stop your heart.
He's like 52 here. He looks 75. It's fantastic.
Yes, exactly. Well, he died. He died when he was 52, or he died very, very shortly thereafter.
This is his last film.
Unfortunately, because he would have been a great
Mortuary kills him. Everyone.
It seems like he's also in Pieces, which is also a great movie.
He is. He filmed Pieces before this.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
He, and of course, Linda Day George, or as we like to call her, Linda Day Bastard George. Because those two are a package deal, baby. They come together. They're locked at the hip. And she's also in a black tunic. She's wandering around. She's in nightgown number 1, baby. This movie is many things, but one of the best things that it is a nightgown delivery system. If you're wondering what nightgowns are, they're like formal lingerie. Like lingerie you'd meet the queen in. And this movie is resplendent in nightgowns, and I'm here for it. So they view this going on, and Josh is like, all right, I'm going to grab the tires. And so he goes back and discovers, I'll put that in dick fingers, the body of Mrs. Andrews in a coffin, and is quickly impaled by our killer with an embalming wand through the stomach. So Josh, you were in your very shiny iron-on transfer t-shirt reading, "I'm just visiting this planet, will not be missed."
It is. That thing was ironed on that morning. It really was.
It's never seen sun. It's never seen oxygen.
Yeah, you can still smell that burning plastic.
And the special, you don't have like that great credit when you're watching a good 70s or 80s horror movie, like special gore effects by so-and-so, by anyone. I mean, you want Tom Savini, you want whatever, but like, they knew how to do the trick of, okay, we have this this stab a wand thing to go into the stomach, and that is it. We're not going to figure out how to do it in the neck. We're not going to figure out how to do it in the hand. We're not going to figure out how to do it through somebody's eye. It's just going through the stomach every single time.
Yeah. Bill Paxton, who, spoiler alert, is the killer here, and it's not a mystery because you can totally see his face.
Yep.
You don't need the Hardy Boys on this bad boy. And yet the movie thinks it is. But he's a very stomach-obsessed serial killer. He likes to poke him in the tum-tum. And that's what he is into, everybody.
And I mean, like, I think that, to your point, like a mystery would require other characters, which there aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it could be Christopher George, but obviously it's not Christopher George. You know what I mean? Like,
no. I mean, he was in the other room while this shit is happening.
Exactly. That's the only other person it could be. Maybe the fat sheriff, but I doubt it.
The misadventures of Sheriff Rollo. Yeah, he's definitely still a suspect, but I think for a multitude of killings just around town, just not these killings. Does Greg say the name Josh 15 times in a row after this? Yes, I counted. Does someone steal Greg's beautiful boogie van and take off? Again, yes. Does Greg look like a Scooby-Doo's Shaggy and Fred were put into a Brundlefly transporter? Yes.
Yeah, he's only kind of put out by this. Just a tad. He's like, that's funny. Someone stole my truck.
It's like it happens all the time to him.
Well, I mean, I guess when you're living a true van life, you can't be that proprietary of your own van. You got your keys. If a buddy's like, "Yo, dude, can I use your van?" The answer has to be yes. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, it's the van code.
Exactly. It's just, hey man, have it back to me by Thursday, buddy, and like, don't be a dick about it. That's the move. So he's like, Josh is just, he felt he had to van out of here, dude. Who am I to tell him what to do?
Yeah, don't get any bodily fluids on the wall-to-wall carpeting.
Exactly.
Leave as many joints in the dictionary as you found, that sort of situation. But as long as you abide by Boogie Van code, you get to use Boogie Van. So Greg enlists his girlfriend that we learn, Christy, to go look for Josh because they're deeply in love with one another. I mean, they don't really say it and they don't demonstrate it and they don't really act like it, but you just kind of assume it because the movie does. Now, Greg mentions that Mr. Andrews was holding, quote unquote, a seance with a group of women, but pointedly does not mention that Christy's mom was one of those women because Greg is not a narc. Learn from Greg, everyone.
Yep, that's the move. It's none of his business. He's like, hey, whatever Mrs. Andrews wants to get up to, is that her?
Hey, man, I ain't going to judge. Be into whatever you're into.
Listen, we were both in a warehouse that we shouldn't have been in, and we were doing things we shouldn't have been doing. Bygones, y'all. So, Greg and Christy head where we all would go in this situation, and that is 75 miles north of Malibu to Ventura, California, to Skating Plus. And yes, Skating Plus still exists, everyone, and so does that bubble lettering.
Amazing.
That's exciting.
It's incredible. This is the kind of sequence, Gina, that Skate Town USA wants to be a lot, but Skate Town USA forces so many weird 60s and 70s comedians into it that you don't really get all the roller skate goodness out of it.
Yeah, this does feel like you were talking earlier about how good but out of place the scene is. It does feel like outtakes from a movie that was originally filmed to take advantage of the very brief roller skating movie fad.
Yeah, they definitely want to evoke that. But again, this is released in 1983, where now roller skating is a tad passe. So would disco, but not according to this movie, because there's a song in this sequence, and anytime they're in anytime that any music outside the soundtrack is playing, called Be My Love.
They got the rights to that song. God damn it, they're going to use it.
Yeah, they use the fuck out of it. They paid for it. They probably wrote it. They're going to use it. And does it have lyrics? Yes, I wrote them down. Buckle up, everybody.
Oh, boy.
Your touch, need you so much. Criminal way that I feel I might look all right till I'm out of your sight. Ooh. Crying for love I can't steal. Ask you to stay, but you get away. There's no getting next to you. Please don't ignore. I love you more. What a shame that you can't be my love. This is a serial killer anthem.
I was going to say,
yeah,
that's something a rapist says.
What is the Christmas song that every generation discovers is creepy?
Baby, it's cold outside.
It's cold outside. This is It's Cold Outside for slasher movies. It is a very weird song.
I do love, because I think it's Christy who's just like, they're driving and they're like, oh man, I don't know, where could he be? And she's like, maybe at the roller rink, smash cut to the roller rink, which is hilarious. But that's like, if you were asking me like, oh, I don't know, man, I haven't seen my dad. He's got Alzheimer's. I'd be like, maybe it's at the pizzeria. Like, she just wants to go to the fucking roller rink. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's around lunchtime. I was like, I think he's down to that pizzeria. Maybe we should check the pizzeria first, for sure, to make sure your dad's okay.
Just to we should follow all leads, even the ones that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm. But and yet, when they pull into the parking lot, the van is there. So this is a good idea, honestly, from Christy, which is the good ideas from Christy stop here, everyone.
Well, the van wants to go, like, its natural state is to go to the roller rink. It's going to be like, if you like just put the gas, didn't touch the steering wheel, it would take you to the roller rink.
It would just naturally drift there. It's like a salmon going upstream. It doesn't know why. It just knows it needs to go to the skating rink. Once inside, we meet Jim.
Oh wait, they have names. Wait. They have names.
Yeah, I researched this shit so hard, Gina. Finding information out of this was like trying to pierce the veil on a Mission Impossible movie. Just trying to now which one is on which side? Is he wearing a mask? What's going on? That I wrote down so many names for the girl who's named Bonnie before I reached Bonnie. It's just the credits are so dazzlingly incomplete here. But we start with Jim, and he's a heavier gentleman. He's dressed like he's attending a Minnesota Vikings themed sleepover. He's on the skate floor, which is linoleum, and his friends And I put that in dick fingers. Lois and Mark are pushing and shoving him around like they've been hired to do it.
Jim kind of reminded me a little bit of Frank and Beans from There's Something About Mary. I gotta say, just a little bit.
Just a touch. He's got a little bit of what's his face from I think it's a Friday 3, Shelley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like the prankster of the group. And again,
and that's why you're right. That in a different slasher movie, he probably would have been killed first.
Oh, for sure. And
we would have loved it.
He's begging for a embalming knife to the gut, where the only place it can possibly go.
Would have loved to see that shoved down his throat or pierced from one ear to the next. I mean, there's so many places on his body. I would love to shove an embalming wand to up the body count here. And yet we don't. What we do get is the feeling that Jim and Bonnie and Mark are in a skating throuple. Because we only ever see Jim one other time outside the skating rink. Every other time he's inside the skating rink, hip to hip with Bonnie.
Yep.
And Mark.
The three of them are always together. Whenever we see them, they are always together.
They were less uptight about that sort of thing, man. Just if you're skating, just go skating.
If you're on wheels, normal rules don't apply. You get to be in a throuple when you're on wheels, and it's 1983. Take off the wheels, society might judge you differently. But Bonnie seems to be recruiting Greg to be their fourth, right in front of Christy. Christy, not fazed by this. So
she's not fazed by a lot of things, honestly.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Later on, when she starts sleepwalking, I have a note, which is like, is she sleepwalking or does she just look like that? Because I'm not, I really wasn't sure at that moment.
If you told me that instead of just sleepwalking in the sleepwalking scenes, she was sleepwalking through the entire movie, I would believe it. Now, when they discover that they have not seen Josh around, they're going to, and Greg and Chrissy are going to take off. Jim stops Greg as he walks out the door and says, "Hey, Greg, you look like shit." And he's being rude, but he's also not lying, because it looks like Greg has been weeping. He's very red-lidded underneath the eyes. He's either stoned or he's been crying in the men's room.
Well, Josh is missing, folks. And I mean, more importantly, the van is as well.
Yes, because when they go outside, the van has vanished. And so, resigned to the fact that they did not catch Josh, Greg and Christy go back to Greg's house, where Greg quickly tries to get her into the back seat. And this is where we discover, as the viewer, that Greg's hand is bigger than Christy's head.
Sure.
He can palm her like he's in a fucking basketball team.
Pretty impressive.
Then they go from the front seat, and now they're going to the back seat in his driveway, which is bold.
Yes.
There's no wrong way to mourn the loss of a parent, but I feel like this method comes the closest for Christy.
But I mean, like, and the thing of it is, like, yeah, you're in junior college, you're of age, you can fuck in your driveway, but you probably shouldn't. You know what I mean?
It's like, they can, these people don't have bedrooms.
Yes, exactly.
Like then they have this other, near sex scene, just, right in the middle of the living room floor. And it's like, you have a room, go to it.
Yeah.
I feel like they want to be caught. There's no other reason for this. It's just, it feels better when a parent can see them for whatever reason. And Greg and Chrissy almost become a sad sandwich via an embalming wand, because the killer is right outside their goddamn car. But Greg's parents emerge from the house to cock block him.
His 75-year-old parents.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Greg's dad is a real character.
I don't know what kind of movie the actor who plays Greg's dad thought he was being casted, but he's great.
He's really good. And he's got 2 scenes and he's going to use them.
Yeah. He is working the set in both of his scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really walking around feeling himself. He wants to be part of the space. He doesn't want to shy away from anything. When he emerges from the house, he's wearing the robe version of a drug rug. It's a vision. Cut to Cliffside Junior College, a.k.a. Cal State Northridge, pre the 1992 quake. And this is where we meet Paul Andrews out of makeup. That is Bill Paxton. Now, Paul's introduced here, sans Grim Reaper. And his idea of a date to Christy is that she come over and listen to Mozart and maybe slip into something more comfortable, say a coffin. He says, I got a new Mozart, like Wolfgang just dropped a new banger.
It's great because if you look, and again, I have the stunning transfer on Amazon, the record that he's holding, or he's holding a stack of records, and the outward facing one is The Doors. And maybe that's the one you want to lead with, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I got this cool new Doors album. I got a J. It's 1981. You know what I mean? Like, these are things we want to do.
Did you know they don't have a bassist? There's no bass. Like, lead with something that's even semi-cool. I mean, I would not personally call the Doors cool. I'm just one of those people. The Doors and the Eagles.
No.
They're two places I just can't fucking go. But this surprisingly does not work out for Paul. Christy heads off with Greg. Later that day, Greg heads to the sheriff's station, making him one of the only LA County residents whom the sheriff office has helped without shooting them first. So congratulations, Greg.
You got to check that sandy blonde hair, my friend. Also,
it's helping.
I got to say, if, I would never want to work in law enforcement. That's not for a trillion reasons. But this beachside sheriff's office with the surf licking the back of this guy's office, I'm kind of interested. I'm like, maybe.
Do you have an internship program?
Exactly. You need
a secretary.
Exactly. That's what we're talking. Administrative work.
Right. Yeah. I'll pull the stuff out of filing cabinets that you want lost so that you're not
I will
on
shred
charges
evidence for you.
Right. One of my favorite moments in this, where you can always tell this is like a one take wonder, is when Greg heads into the sheriff's office. He heads down these 2 or 3 stair steps, and he just jumps down them with his hands up in the air like a whee descent down the stairs.
Yeah.
You don't get that in a lot of slashers.
And especially very few people go into the police station that way.
Yeah. I'm talking to the cops. Yeah. It's a weird one. Now, after Christy drops Greg off, we discover that she's being followed. And if the scenery behind Christy seems familiar, that's because it's the exact same road that the parents bide it in the opening scenes of Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker.
Wow.
But somehow, some way, she manages to lose that dark sedan that's following her. And she just pulls into her driveway and no one's following. This movie is bad at building tension, everyone.
Well, it doesn't help that she really does not look concerned.
Yeah.
Yes. And, she just barely beats him to her house, which, I mean, obviously that's where she's going. And if you're Paul, you know where she lives. You killed her fucking dad 2 weeks ago, or I should say a month ago. And I will say a month ago, because the conflict with her mom is just like, I don't know, your dad was murdered a month ago. Could we get over it, please? Like, I am so tired of talking about this.
We've been through this. Your father's dead. I need to move on. I want to be out and about on a Saturday afternoon in a nightgown and do a satanic ritual, honey. And I feel like you need to move on too. Come on, loosen up. Let's have some booze. You and me. Come on. Everything about this home reads pre-1983. With the exception of Linda Day George's haircut. Everything else tells me that this was decorated in 1976 from the Browns to the other Browns.
I do think this is one of my favorite jokes from one of my favorite Mystery Science Theater jokes is, I think, in Space Mutiny when the old guy introduces his daughter. He's like, "Oh, this is my daughter." And the joke is, "Oh, we're about the same age," which is exactly what's happening here. It's fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
They are sisters. This is not even Gilmore Girls level. This is like Crazy Town.
Yeah, I thought she was supposed to be her stepmother originally. Exactly. And I was like, oh, wait, no, this is like this woman gave birth to her when she was 2, I guess.
Right. When she was 9.5. Like, when did this happen? When did her and the good Dr. Parson get together?
Yes.
But Eve tells us that Dr. Parson's death was ruled an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm no Inspector Clouseau, but Christy's dad took 2 blows, one to the head.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. We did just discuss this. I mean, it was a slight glance off his head with a baseball bat.
Yes.
But also, neither of those things are consistent with an accidental drowning. Like, you might hit your head and roll into the pool.
Sure.
But you also don't take a bat hit to the back and then roll into the pool. Just, I have a feeling something is fishy in the sheriff's department.
Don't worry, we'll never know. Because that guy's got 1 to 1.5 seeds tops.
Later that night, Christine is in bed screaming, "Daddy." Don't worry, it's a vivid dream about her father's death. It's not something sexual. And if you just look at it without the rest of the movie, it doesn't read as super weird and highly sexual. But this prompts Christine to sleepwalk in nightgown number 2, baby. How lucky is this killer? Because he doesn't even have to break into the house. Christy just wanders outside, all vulnerable and in a nightgown. And he just waits until she almost drowns herself.
Yeah.
Wakes up and is already walking away before he attacks. What I'm saying is, it's perfect timing. Thumbs up.
It's pretty good. Yeah, she's not that great at acting, I would say, just in terms of like when she wakes up, I could barely tell that she woke up. I'm like, oh, okay.
Also, it doesn't help like when you're a killer and you're sneaking up on somebody and then you have to go, "Christy."
Yes.
Don't whisper her name all creepy. Just kill her if that is your goal. You don't have to announce her name and announce your presence. That is not going to help you in your, what we all assume is goal, to kill this person.
And I mean, like, and this is when you really know it's Bill Paxton, because I mean, like, you've seen him already. He's not done anything but be creepy in the movie. And and the other thing is, like, he's got I mean, that's why he was such an interesting actor. He's like, has such an interesting face, like such a memorable, unusual face, just the way like the cheekbones are and the upturned nose and the lip. Like, it could only, like, even if I just met this guy, but oh, that's Bill Paxton. You know what I mean?
Right. There's nothing about his face that doesn't say this guy grew up in East Texas. And it leaps off the screen. And I don't think the filmmaker who primarily made movies that were avenues for nudity understood what a slasher movie was. He just knew he could get one made and gave it a whirl. And this is what we get, everyone. And I think if you watch it, it's fun to watch. It's as Jupin puts it, something you watch with the tall glass of water.
Yes, for sure.
And with a group, you're going to have a fun time. But if you're looking for something like the most serious, gem, as it were, that's not what it's here to do. It's here to be weird and deliver nightgowns. So the next morning or afternoon, some sort of time period in the future, we cut to a cemetery.
Yes.
And Greg and Christy are meeting there. Why?
Yes. I mean, theoretically,
Why?
you cut the scene, the part of the scene, which I assume is when she's at her father's grave, and like, I can't believe it's been a month. All these things but they're just like hanging out, having a very breezy conversation about this.
Yeah, it's like we always meet in the cemetery.
I would really love to know how the blocking of this scene was created, because they are standing in such a bizarre pose to have a conversation. It looks like they're posing to get a picture taken at prom.
Yes.
Like he's got his arm around her waist. She's got her hand on his shoulder. It looks like they're waiting for somebody to say, "Okay, look at the camera, smile."
cheat out. We all want to make sure we see that the flowers on her wrist. That's it. But adding to the awkwardness, of course, is Bill Paxton's entrance. He just knows how to do it. For example, here, this time, he just emerges from behind a tomb, left to right, slide.
Like a lovable Dracula.
Yes. And then, I mean, it's so awkward. You feel like he should be taking attendance at a middle school AV club. It's just really awkward, but it's intentional. Everything he's doing is intentional and belongs in I don't know about a more serious movie, but
he's the only one. He's the only one that knows what he's doing with his character.
Yes.
Right.
And I will say also, because he announces like, "Oh, I'm here to visit my mom's grave." He's the only one that belongs in that goddamn cemetery, as far as I'm concerned, because I haven't heard anything as to why these two are making out in the cemetery in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, even if this movie was filmed in 1980 secretly, we're a post-Phantasm world, everyone. I don't go to cemeteries to make out in the middle of the day.
Nope.
But yes, Paul is there to put flowers on his mother's grave. And he goes, these are for my mom's grave. Do you like them, Christy? And she's like, yeah, they're great. And he pulls one out and hands it to her. Like, that is a normal thing. One of my mom's grave flowers, young lady.
Did your heart melt a little bit, Gina, when he did that? Like, I wish someone would do that for me.
It was a little, it's like when you go to the Ren Fair and there's someone, passing out flowers and they'll stick in the lady's cleavage.
Betwixt me breasts, sire. And then the reason why we're here, quite frankly, we've only mentioned it once briefly before here, but this is the reason you show up to Mortuary 1983. Because after this exchange of a flower, Bill Paxton skips away in a series of movements, I'll call them that should at least have won him an Oscar, a Tony, a Critics' Choice Award, the Mark Twain Prize for Comedy, a generous grant from the Chubb Group, all of them.
I honestly hope that at his memorial service, he just played this on a loop over and over again. just to show what a delight he was. Because I think
was made better by this man.
I think it was supposed to evoke, he is really excited that she has accepted more or less this rose from him. And he kind of looks like he's doing a sort of old fashioned, like, woohoo, like jumping up and clicking his heels together, like something Jimmy Stewart would have done.
It's so good.
I mean, the skip, I think the skipping is only half the genius, because it's the side-to-side head movement that works against where the legs are.
Oh, sure. That's how you're skipping with purpose.
Yeah. It's just, there's a Charles Hayden Savage level unexpected hip movements that don't read as real about it. And like how fast he gets from one side of the screen to the other. He's like a gazelle who posts a lot on incel Reddit groups. I love that skip. It's incredible. The world is better for that being captured on film.
Yeah, you should watch the whole thing, but you could definitely find just this clip on YouTube.
If that doesn't fire you up, maybe you don't watch the rest, but I promise you, like, the movie is full of those weird ass moments because it just doesn't know how to deliver scary moments or suspenseful moments. It just has weirdness throughout, and that's what you're there for. As we mentioned earlier, Greg's dad, Mr. Stevens, he's never given a first name. He doesn't deserve one. I did not remember him being such a prominent person in this motion picture. But when Greg goes to the flower shop to pick up flowers to take to the mortuary, Mr. Stevens walks forward in a scene in the oddest manner I've ever encountered. He walks like his hips were fused after a tragic Lambada accident. He side saddles like he's Gumby, and you're like, that's not the way people walk, sir. And he's like, what? Wait till you hear me talk. People don't talk like this either. It's nutso. His wife, meanwhile, is dressed like a creamsicle. in orange and white.
Well, they want you to remember them because it's their last scene in the movie. You'll never see them ever again.
It's true. They disappear into the ether. They're vaporware after this. But he comes from the bank, and either the pants are too tight or he is. I'm not sure which. But just human beings don't act like this. The amount of wicker in that flower shop should also be illegal. I'll just put that out there. Now, Greg, of course, is his dad owned this flower shop, and they say that Mr. Stevens' Mortuary is their biggest client. So don't fuck this up for us, Greg. And yes, before you say anything, the Andrews Mortuary is called Heaven's Gate because that's a term that has zero negative connotations to it.
Well, I mean, back then it didn't.
Well, at least the movie Heaven's Gate had been out at that point. Out and closed in quick succession. And yes, we do get funeral home humor. We mentioned it briefly earlier. We have a coffin shopping couple here.
Yes.
Whose every scene is gold. You just have to watch it.
They're having a blast.
Christopher George comes in. Have you thought of cremation?
Yes.
And a smile crosses their face, Gina. Like
we hadn't.
We hadn't, but now that you talk about it, now that you mention our dead bodies being consumed by flame, I'm into it. Tell me more. They're so happy to be out there.
He's
they're so happy to be on
Christopher
camera.
George about to slap a casket and say this bad boy could fit so many corpses in it.
Well, actually, it was owned by an old lady who only used it. Oh, wait, no, that doesn't make sense.
She fell behind on payments and we just yanked it out of the ground as good as new. And I can give this to you at a heavy, heavy discount. I don't tell everyone about that. So now Greg tries to quickly, after Christopher George just rattles out him for 3 straight minutes.
Just popping veins left and right in his temples. He's scanning him.
He would have lived to be 54 if he didn't do this scene. That's kind of.
He really just put a strain on everything.
Yeah,
Took that 1 extra year off his life.
It's just, they couldn't take any more. His heart had this scene and maybe one other one. And unfortunately, he did both. It's a sad story, but it's true. So Greg's trying to hightail it the fuck out of there. But of course, Paul pulls him into, I don't know, what do you call this room? They're preparing corpses in there. And Paul's like, hey, want to look at the boobs on this dead body? And Greg doesn't say no. And just keeps staring at it. And I know, the real pervs in this audience are gawking at those bodacious tatas. But yours truly is clocking one of our favorite things on this show. And that's dead bodies breathing real oxygen. That's right. Yeah. This dead body is breathing real hard, and she won't be the last.
It's so good. Well, especially at the end of the movie when some people are dead and some are not. I'm like, how can you tell? How can you tell? What's the clue here, movie? What are you going to tell me?
So here to break up a very awkward time is Christopher George, who treats his free labor, son, like my dad did, attempting to teach me to drive stick in the church parking lot. There's a lot of righteous anger, bulging veins, empty threats, swearing. It's all here, baby. It's like, why is this person in this room with this naked dead body? And then we get 2 extra minutes of them just farting around.
Yep.
With this dead body, and Paul's hanging out in the doorway well, I want to see the rest of it.
Yes, exactly.
The rest of it.
I don't even think we get any information in this scene. It's just sort of embalming, and also if the movie is that embalming forward, maybe you want to do a little more process about embalming. Right. You know what I mean? Show it and show how gross it can be and whatever. No, we're not doing any of that.
No, none of that. We learned that embalming exists.
Yes.
So, cut to the Castle Parson, where all the lights are out when Greg and Christy return home. And we get the absolute treat of Greg's Count Dracula impression, which is not great. It sounds like what would happen if the Count from Sesame Street were hosting SNL and he had to play a part in the Californian sketch.
Well, it's one of those things.
I take the PCH down to Sunset, then 5 north, and get on Ventura. Yes, I wrote all that joke down. It didn't take me long, but I wrote it down.
I do. Well, them like kind of, he like they're just kind of fooling around, being sort of sexy-ish with one another. And then he's like, he does his bad Count Dracula thing. And I'm like, oh, so this is what it's like when stupid people have sex. Okay, that's interesting. So they pretend to be Count Dracula for a little while, and then they start sticking things places. Interesting. I didn't know that.
He's a classic sex idiot. Like we talked about this a bit when we did Friday the 13th part 2. You got a big blonde sex idiot in that too. And you don't quite see what she sees in him, but then when they start fucking, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. He doesn't have the thoughts in his head to get in the way. So it's just good at sex because he's not thinking about how weird it is. He's just doing it and he enjoys the hell out of it. And by, you don't want to marry the guy, but also sex idiot. Try one, won't you? Christy, at one point in this conversation, says a statement that I never used to sleepwalk before my father was murdered.
And then cue pop music, which is an amazing thing because like the gag here is that the power is going to go in and out. But it is tremendous that I never used to sleep. And like no one. And that's the thing, too, like in a minute, like at the end of the sequence, I think, is when he really tries to put the moves on her and she's like, I can't do that. No one's giving this woman room. You know what I mean?
No.
Like there's no room for her. It's like she's clearly having a bad time of it, which she's allowed because her father, A, just suddenly died, and B, also more than likely was murdered in front of her. You got to give her a little bit of space.
Well,
yes. She's like, you're doing anything to get out of it. Like, maybe I feed you milk and a bowl full of something or other.
She also keeps, changing how much any of this really bothers her.
Yes.
Not even from like scene to scene, but like minute to minute.
Yeah. Well, she's got like a goofy smile on her face half of the movie.
She seems bemused to be there. Like she didn't expect to show up to work on this movie again.
Like when these lights start flashing off and on, she just kind of standing there like, that's odd.
I'll go with it.
Like how long are you going to, stand there watching your lights flash on and off before getting mildly frightened that maybe either someone is fucking with it outside of your house or that you have ghosts.
Yep. And also that your dad was just murdered like not 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
They're standing there for what feels like 45 minutes. Just, as these lights, this blaring disco music keeps, clicking on and off.
And a slow motion strobe machine,
And you cannot undersell how not scary this is. And not even not scary, like not even approaching scary. It's not funny.
It would probably be scarier if they acted like they were scared.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
But the movie isn't telling you that they should be scared.
Yes.
It's just assuming that you're scared. Now, I hate to break this up, but we mentioned that disco is happening here, and that means pop quiz hotshot. It's time to play Choose Your Own Deathventure, where we decide if the disco dances that we have seen during Steven's appearances here on Kill by Kill, which one would you rather dance along to and why? Up for bid, we've got Hank and Cass from Creepshow and their funky chicken meat spatusi. Or you've got Greg and Christie's Scarecrow who just learned to walk meets rhythmically leaning over to Bob for apples. So, Steven, as our guest, I choose you to go first.
I would go with the Creepshow dance. Those two are having a blast, and like they're having such a blast. There's absolutely no way that cocaine is not involved. Like it has to have happened seconds ago. The only way your body can move that way is with a fucking fresh shot. So I'm going with Creepshow on this one.
Yeah, the way Ed's head bobs up and down at that one point where he does a faux, he does his own chicken dance. He does his own, he has his hand above his head shaking it. It's a crazy way to dance. Gina, what say you?
Oh yeah, it's definitely got to be Ed Harris. Only and you both for what you guys said, and also because it's just so far removed from the Ed Harris we would come to know.
Right. Whereas we never know what happens to Greg and Christy. These people just dance off into obscurity, never to darken our doorway again. Like at least Ed Harris, at one point he did this, and then he did many other grumpy things.
I love it.
So they are interrupted by their mom. Or by Christy's mom, who's pretty sassy for a lady trying to not look like she had her husband murdered, which Christy believes. At one point, Christy picks up a phone and says to Greg, "It's dead." To which Greg responds, "What do you mean?" What do you think she means, Greg? How many different interpretations of the phrase, "the phone is dead," do you think there are? What do you think a phone is?
And he checks it himself, and phone sure is dead. And yes, this is the very long conversation about, I talked to the phone company yesterday and blah, blah, blah. By the way, this comes to nothing. It's not like you see Bill Paxton fucking around with the power box, or later in the movie, he uses it to his advantage, or it's his final scare. It's like he's doing like crazy stuff with the... No. I mean, I guess this was just a wacky happenstance.
Yeah, it's like a tree limb is bouncing up and down on an electrical pole. Yep. Who the fuck knows what it is? But it has nothing to do with the plot of the motion picture. And so much so that it just ends. And the next day, Christy and Greg continue their... Well, investigation might be too active a word for it.
Yeah, no, you're being very generous.
Well, because that's okay. This is the scene missing part where they're following Chrissy's mom, and they're like, "Oh, that's where she said she was going to be." I'm like, "That's a scene that I needed." Whatever it, you know what I mean? Like, because they're following her to this yet another afternoon seance. This movie's never been a dark and stormy night.
No. There's absolutely no thunderstorms in this motion picture. There's no atmosphere. We don't quite understand why it's happening or where. There's a brief scene where we see Paul putting makeup on what we assume is the corpse of his mom. Turns out she's just drugged to the guild. Spoiler alert for that one. But then back at the Heaven's Gate, this is I'm sorry. There's one thing I forgot about in the warehouse, and that is Christy, dressed as a guide from Jurassic Park, is scared by a tire. There's a tire scare. Very important. That's the only thing that comes of it. There's really nothing else happening.
There's a tire scare, and yet she is not at all even the slightest ruffled by seeing her mother participating in some sort of seance where she is attempting to call the spirit of her recently deceased father. And this is what I'm talking about when I said that this, the way that they filmed this seems to be that they filmed it, you cut each reel into pieces and threw them on the ground and picked it back up and glued it back together without any semblance of order, because they see her at this seance. They know that she's involved.
Yep.
They know that she's involved with Paul's father in some way. And then the very next scene, they fucking. It's like they're relieved about something. All our suspicions have been confirmed. I guess we solved the mystery. Did you?
No. It's no, and also I think ghosts now exist because the table is like nodding yes and nodding no, which is kind of hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, somehow the table is communicating to them, but if you put a shim under it, you'd be able to enjoy your dinner that night outside.
Yep.
This is not a serious effort to contact the dead. Okay, Dr. Pearson, if you can hear me, wobble the table occasionally. Wobble. Okay. And then it ends. He's like, "Hey, were you murdered?" Wobble. Okay, I think we're done for tonight, everybody, right? We've made it. We don't need to ask who murdered him or if he knows any information we can follow up on. Nope, we're all done. Okay, great. Turn off the Suspiria lighting package, everyone. I think we've made a lot of progress tonight.
It's incredible.
Back at the Castle Parson, Greg is attempt number 3 to woo Christy into bed. But he does win me over a little bit here because he's seeking consent rather than assuming he has the right to sex. Greg for president? Maybe.
Well, no,
Maybe.
because when she, turns him down, he gets a little shitty about it. And he pulls the whole, you really need to start getting over your father being murdered a month ago.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a guilt trip about it. Like, hey, I know that you're grieving, but guess what? I'm hard, and that kind of trumps everything. You know what I mean? Not the best.
We have a thing here on the show that we developed after we went through the Scream franchise, and it's a little phrase called, "Have you considered my penis?" Mm-hmm. And up until this point, Greg has not pulled the "Have you considered my penis?" But after their roll in the hay where Christy's body is replaced with somebody else, and she finally looks up and sees a picture of her dead father and says, "There's one line I won't cross, and that's having an orgasm in front of pictures of my dead father." Whereas myself, I can't have an orgasm unless I'm looking at a picture of my live father. We're just different people, baby. Different people.
Different strokes for different folks, they say.
But is this like, you just got to go ahead, from your girlfriend to let's have sex before your mom gets home action? Do you, as Gina pointed out, head upstairs for just a modicum of privacy? Or do you fuck on the living room rug?
With your entire, every wall in your living room is windows.
This is true, but lest I remind you folks, this living room is sunken in. So when the mom comes home, if they were fucking, they would have time to react, because her eye level wouldn't go all the way down into the living room floor. Certainly not.
They're in a carpeted.
Yes.
They're in a carpeted foxhole.
Yes,
from
exactly. They are below the radar, literally below radar.
Gina, I was very excited in this sequence when this is happening, because it cuts away to the outside and you get the killer POV and you hear the breather from Student Bodies. He crosses over the timelines.
I love it when he shows up.
And so, Christy ends up not wanting to have sex, and it cuts away to an establishing shot of the house. We know they're there. We haven't been anywhere else.
Nope.
This is continuous. But they're like, we want to make sure you did not catch that it is a body double of Christine.
Yeah.
So they go to the outside of the house for a second, and then they're back to it, and she's got a shirt on and no pants. She's like, you know what? I think we ought to break up.
Yeah.
And they do. Eve comes home, and Greg is kind of like, well, you won't be seeing me around much more, Mrs. Christie, because we broke up. And she's like, oh, I'm sure I will. And he's kind of like, so we gonna have sex?
I mean, you seem a lot cooler about the whole dead dad situation, because he wasn't even your dad, right? Because how does that work?
I've never been quite sure.
It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
I didn't want to ask. I thought it'd be rude,
but there's a whole lot of living room rug that we can use that really hasn't been
I got
utilized.
a van. You know about my van? I got a van.
It's fantastic.
So cut to later that night so we can get nightgowns to Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
And Christy has another sleepwalking incident in which she tries to knife the killer through a window. So she defenestrates her hand, but that's about it. She gets a little bit of an ouchie that Linda Day George has to clean up. And of course, yes, Linda Day George is wearing nightgown number 4.
A nightgown and the diaphanous robe.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
You can tell this woman has got money, and she's not afraid to use it.
She's got the full Hammer horror ensemble.
Oh yeah, she looks like she should be running away from a castle in the middle of the night.
It's great because they finally make up here, and I think the mom is like, listen, I'm not going to say that I went to a seance this afternoon, but I did. And I got a little news from your dad that he might've been murdered. So now, which also, it doesn't shake me to my core. I'm a bit relieved, honestly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's like, I think
at least now I know.
Now we're turning a corner as a family now that we both believe that your father was murdered.
I mean, she's waffling a little bit. She's kind of like, well, I'm not sure if your dad was murdered, but here's an entire backstory on a character that definitely tells you he had a reason to kill your father. Mm-hmm. Now let's have some brandy.
Well, because it's like, they're like, oh yeah, Paul was dangerously obsessed with you. They wanted to ship off to an asylum, yada yada yada, and it's like all of that. There's a credible threat. The window is broken. Let's get drunk enough so this doesn't matter is the idea, I think.
And I'm sorry I never told you sooner that this classmate of yours has said you outrageous delusional things about you to your psychiatrist father that was treating him.
Oh, and by the way, your dad told me everything his patient said. That's the benefit of being married. He told me what they were up to, what their names were. It's amazing. You'll be shocked when you hear about the sheriff, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
I was like his filing cabinet for his mental notes. He just yapped about it all. Anyways, it's probably nothing. Have a drink, go to bed. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really glad that Christy and Eve worked things out, because just 2 minutes later, Eve is stabbed to death with an embalming wad. That's a bit Freudian. With an embalming wand in such a way that, Paul definitely came in his pants during that.
It is. I will give this movie that it takes any guesswork out of what do male killers get when they stab women. That's it. It just, you know what I mean? If you've ever been like, but I just don't get the symbolism, this movie will give it to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've all heard the thing. I read, Women in Chainsaws and everything. And then we've covered a lot of slashers on the show, Gina. And obviously, some of it is very misogynistic. Some of it's very judgy. Not all of it is that hyperbolic. But then you see a movie like Mortuary, and it's like, yeah, this stabbing instrument is how he fucks. Like, okay. Yeah, you have a point. Paul, not a great pursuit killer, because after this, it chases Christy like in and out of the house. She goes to like this pool/greenhouse or poolside terrarium. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. It's got greenery and wicker. Anyhow, she thinks she's shaking him. She heads back to the house. He's already there. And then Paul gets on top of her and knocks her out with some of Jigsaw's sleep rag juice. Mm-hmm. And then, y'all, it is revealed that this movie would like you to think that Paul has been wearing a mask every time he's killed somebody.
No.
Because she pulls a mask off his face, and the mask does not look like Bill Paxton's face.
No.
And he's wearing Batman eye makeup underneath it.
Even more, I kind of want like the timetable, because all like Paul, Greg and Christy have a date. Everyone goes to bed. Everyone literally goes to bed in the house. All of the stuff that we get some sleep. She wakes up, she sleepwalks, all this stuff. And then at the end of the sequence, when Christy is finally captured by Paul, we cut to the roller rink already in progress. Is it 4 a.m.? Like, what are you talking about? And they're just eating popcorn and drinking soda. And like, Dave is just like, man, I wish I was in this movie. Like, it's not as great as it looks. Honestly, you could do better.
Yeah. And then, like, Jim, Bonnie, and Mark are there attached at the hip, as you do when you're a roller skate-based throuple. And they're like, listen, we would love to have you in to make this a foursome. But I do think if things are going to work out with Christine, why don't you just go back and talk to her one more time in the middle of the night? We'll be here until, I don't know, they're locked in like it's at a church and they're on like a 24-hour thing. I don't know what the fuck
there's some sort of like skate-a-thon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be here till 6 a.m. Just go back over there. It's fine.
It's fine. So on his way back over, of course he sees the car that Paul's driving, spies that Christy is knocked out in the front seat, Mom's dead in the back, and they're headed to Heaven's Gate.
Oh, so good.
And he goes into hot pursuit. Paul, meanwhile, once he reaches Heaven's Gate, is ready for action, Paul, because he's running. He's under a timetable, everybody. So Paul brings in the one dead body, one passed out body on one gurney, everyone, because he's crafty that way. He undresses the stand-in for Christy, which is not important. What is important is that Linda Day George is breathing like she just completed a 5K fun run in the background.
Yeah.
Again, this movie works perfectly when it is 240. It's like it's broadcast on cable on a 4:3 television, and that's as good as it gets. That's where you want to see this film. I have a Blu-ray. You see too much.
At this point, Paul reveals, I guess, his ultimate plan / fetish is to embalm Christy while she's alive. That way they'll always be together, ? A lot. ? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not my, listen, I don't come to Mortuary for realism.
Sure.
What I come to Mortuary for is to watch Bill Paxton sedate an obvious stand-in for our lead actress and then coat her with a liberal drizzle of olive oil from a squirt bottle and towel her off. This takes 5 fucking minutes. All the while, Greg is knocking on heaven's gate until Hank arrives, and then he hides. It appears as if everyone has come to the same conclusion. Paul is a very special boy who needs to be in a small room with a door that only locks from the outside. And it's at this point I came to a realization that there are very few cinematic serial killers who end up having to hurry their death, their kills, because daddy is coming home. It's this movie and Mikey, Gina.
Yeah, it's sort of like when you were a kid and you decide you're going to like take apart something that belonged to one of your parents just to see how it worked, and then you realize, oh shit, they're coming home soon. You're like scrambling to like kind of you jerry rig it back together, and hope you didn't miss anything when the time they get back.
Yeah.
Search that one closet for your birthday presents or whatever the fuck. Yeah. It's something you're not supposed to be getting into. And then you hear, something pull into the driveway. You're like, oh, fuck. But it was never killing a lady.
Nope, it's not. And the dad shows up and all of his veins are bulging because he's like, where have you been? I've been driving all over. He's like, oh, no, it's here. He's like, no, you haven't. The sheriff is going to arrest you because basically everybody knows you're a fucking maniac and kill people, and I should have done that. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, guess where that fucking rod's going, baby? Right in the stomach. No other place it can go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Christopher George passed from a heart attack a mere 2 months after this film wrapped, and I believe it is from expressing the pain of having this wand go through his tum-tum.
I was going to say, he just like crumples to the ground looking like, thank God I'll have 40 more movies after this one.
Linda, we're out of here. We're on the next fucking flight. We got another cheapo movie that we can do together. And unfortunately, he did not make it. And so begins a full 4 minutes of Greg slowly wandering around this mortuary until he finds Hank's body. And, that comes roaring out of a door on a gurney. And Greg does not react at all. Much like the tire and Christy, they just are not affected by jump scares. And then, we learned that Paul wants to marry Christy, and Greg gets locked in a room.
Yep.
And then finds
very easily.
Very easily. And, for some reason, Paul is happy to murder his own father, but he would not touch a hair on Greg's head for some reason. I don't know why.
Greg's too beautiful. Yeah. He might kill Greg later. He might have him as his best man, we later learn.
Yeah, someone's got to witness that marriage license.
That's a good point.
That's very, very
also
true.
wouldn't be real.
Right. But, Paul pulls that thing that you do with your dog where you mime like you throw something and you put it behind your back, and Greg goes, what? Huh? What? And goes into a room. It's locked in there.
It really is about that easy.
Yeah.
He essentially just gets led into it like a lamb to the slaughter. And then Greg quickly discovers that the room has 3 items that are on the wall: a saw, an axe, and a wrench. Now,
You might as well have a Freddy. I mean, it's a little early, but a Freddy Krueger glove as well. Just like put it right there. Just put it right next to it.
just in case the sharp hand joke comes through.
Yeah.
But when I saw that trio there, did you think he was going to pick up the saw to help him escape? Because I sure did.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think he would go for the axe first. I thought he's going to pick up that fucking saw.
Nope.
He's going to try to saw his way through a door. I was happy to learn that he didn't do that. But now we cut back to the warehouse district where Paul is surrounded by another one of our favorite tropes here. Gina, it's a chorus of corpses.
Yay!
They're on full display.
It's a corpse party.
Yes, it is. And everyone's invited.
And so you got Christy's mom. You got Christy's dad. You got Paul's mom. You got Paul's dad. You got Josh in that iron-on t-shirt that's still very shiny. And Bill Paxton conducts one song. Well, the music we hear is very clearly a different song playing at a different time signature than he is conducting with that embalming wand.
You know, I was thinking though that this is actually a great advertisement for Heaven's Gates embalming capabilities because Christy's dad looks like he died that morning.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job on Christy's dad.
Yeah. He looks as good as the day he kind of died, for sure. We also learn that there is a wedding cake there on the table.
He thought of everything.
He ordered a fucking wedding cake. Who fulfilled this order? When was it delivered? And to where? This warehouse? That delivery guy had no questions about this? Okay, fine. So Christy's there. She's knocked out because she's been sedated. Greg finally shows up with an axe. He and Paul duel verbally, and you can only imagine how well that goes.
Yeah. Paul explains, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't let my mother, go through what I was going to go through. Something. It goes on for a while. Yeah.
Like at one point, Greg picks up that M16 that was in a coffin randomly.
Which I totally forgot about.
And he shoots it out and Paul's like, they're blanks. I'm like, okay. What was I supposed to believe it was? Anyways, those shots wake, in quotes, Christine, who uses the power of Chekhov's sleepwalking to grab that axe that's been dropped on the ground by Greg and chop Paul in the back.
This is
rather gaping wound.
This is the most like anticlimactic.
Oh my god!
Death of like the killer in a slasher movie I've ever seen.
Well, not unlike it's very well bookended by that bat in the beginning because it's like. And then he's like, yikes, I'm dead. I'm like, oh, are you? I didn't know.
He just like, well, all right, and just falls over.
I mean, might as well. Like, there's a lot of shrug, built into this. And so he falls on the ground dead.
And you know what? If you're doing an axe kill post 1980, you've got to do a Jack Nicholson. Oh!
Right.
You know what I mean?
You need put your back into it.
Like Paxton is great in this, but he's not as great as he could be.
Yes.
He's more restrained than you would expect him to be, except for that skipping scene. Like I feel like that skipping scene was really, everything after that was kind of a letdown. Because I think that if
he's not in his full power,
right? If he stayed at that level through like the big reveal, air quotes, that he's the killer, that it would have been a much more entertaining movie overall. But he's just weirdly like, well, you got me, burp.
Yeah, what you want is near dark level Paxton.
Oh yeah,
He's just not up to speed there yet.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But Greg and Christine embrace and they kind of wander out of frame. And then the camera man just like, you don't want me to do this, right? You do? All right. Pans over to Paul's mom.
She just does a whole
right.
He's setting up for Mortuary 2, baby.
Yeah.
With a question mark. No, okay, I'm lying. There's no question mark.
No,
there should have been.
There should have been the end with a question mark here, but yeah.
It is so, I mean, it's not like, I'm not like confused by it. It's just like, I'm disappointed by it. Like, no, the movie's over. Shut up. No way. Okay. All right. No, your movie ended. I'm sorry. You ended your movie and now you can't have any more movie.
It's not our fault. It's not our fault that you just made your killer just roll over and die after like one shot to the back with an axe.
Yeah, he doesn't get up. This is as big of a oh no that this movie's ever going to get as far as a third act reveal. It's a tad underwhelming. Not to mention the fact that she's brandishing a serrated cake knife.
Yeah,
which just not exactly. And this movie is not like full of oh no weapons, but that's the least oh no weapon that the movie has. And most of these people are killed with an embalming wand.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Greg should be able to make quick work of this old lady.
Yes, like one kick. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's got a reach on her. I'm pretty sure he can just grab that and yank it out of her hand. She's drugged out the kills.
Be like, come on, just slap it out of her hand.
He's been training for this his whole life with Josh and that slap fighting thing. All he needs to do is bring those skills to the table, and he'll probably live through this. But will we live through Choose Your Own Deathventure? And that's where we decide, of the deaths portrayed in this motion picture, if we were forced to die in one of those ways, which one would we choose and why? Up for bid. We have bludgeoned, in quotes, with a bat and drown in a pool, speared with an embalming wand through the tum-tum, stabbed in the stomach with an embalming wand over and over again in kind of the way that tells you he can't use his dick, and this is how he makes up for it. And speared with an embalming wand through the other side, have a heart attack 2 months later, or take an axe to the back in an underwhelming fashion. Stephen, as our guest, I choose you to go first.
I will say I got to go for the first death, the bat in the pool. It looked like a beautiful day. This guy was like smoking a cigarette. He's got a cocktail. He probably had morning sex like 48 minutes earlier. You know what I mean? Like it was just everything was going his way until, and he didn't even see who did it. Like it's an easy way to go out. And then you're like, yeah, maybe you're like, oh fuck. But like, it's a quick, oh fuck. And you're still kind of, you're still in a post-orgasmic bliss, it seems like, on your way out. I mean, that's my guess. That's my fan fiction.
He's going out on top and the bottom of the pool. You know what I mean?
Exactamundo.
Gina, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to take that first death. It just seems very gentle. You know, he gets his little boop, you know, little loving touch with the bat, and then he kind of just, you know, does a nice little roll into the pool. It's not so bad.
No.
Not. And listen, he looks great in those red shorts.
And he looks great like before he's still alive, and he still looks great when he's dead.
Yeah. Look at that head of hair. He's going out the way we all want to, with a slight tap to the noggin and then the sweet release of drowning when you're not awake.
You know, it's like Tinkerbell just coming up and going.
Yeah. There's no better death than this entire thing. Absolutely the way to go. There is no better way around it. And of course, this is when we tell you that Josh Hollis does all of her artwork. And our music is by Revenge Body. Go to RevengeBodyMemphis at bandcamp.com for this theme and all of our remixes. Now, Stephen, this is the opportunity where you tell people where they can see and hear more of you and what you do.
Yeah, we're doing I'm on a podcast called We Hate Movies, which is a bad movie podcast, sort of, kind of. I don't know. We have fun with movies a lot.
You do.
Good, bad, and otherwise. We have a plethora of Patreon offerings, including some good movies that we do. We just released an episode on Blade recently. We're going to, we have a very spooky episode coming up. We've got our Spooktacular coming up, which is my favorite times of the year. Go check out all of those offerings, whmpodcast.com.
We highly endorse. We are part of the Patreon here between me and Gina, independently of one another. We love the show and love what you.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you so
I was
much.
just telling somebody the other day that my entry point into the show was the Blame It on Rio episode.
Oh, good Lord.
I was so shocked to see somebody cover that show because I was pretty sure I had just imagined it in a fever dream.
What a nightmarish film that is. It is.
Oh my God, the mad genius who thought that was a good idea is astounding. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net. I have a Substack, GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. I am on Blue Sky and Instagram and TikTok under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. You can find us on your socials. We're not on Twitter anymore, but we're everywhere else. Join our Patreon where we're doing fun things like chat by chat, answering your questions, taking viewer requests. And of course, we have commentaries like the upcoming Jason X and Friday the 13th remake commentaries, which will both be a hoot and a half, filled with space travelers in fine knits. And that just about does it, folks. But don't worry. The body count will continue probably for another 300 episodes. I can't say. Halloween 1983 is not over. We've got extra fun stuff coming your way. Next week, we'll have a fun Friday the 13th surprise for you. And so for myself and for Gina and for Steve, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.